In the dim glow of his cockpit console, Max Harlan stared at the flickering holograph display, his eyes burning from too many sleepless nights. It was September 8, 2025, or at least that's what his ship's chronometer insisted, though out here in the void between stars, time felt like a cruel joke. Back on Earth, he'd been the golden boy of Silicon Valley, a startup founder with a dream bigger than the cosmos itself. Stellar Forge, his company, was supposed to revolutionize interstellar travel, turning the galaxy into a playground for humanity. But dreams have a way of crashing, just like his prototype ship had done hours ago. The engine had sputtered and died in a spectacular burst of plasma fire, hurling the vessel toward the barren dunes of an uncharted desert planet. Max gripped the controls, his knuckles white, as the hull groaned under the strain of atmospheric entry. Alarms blared like a symphony of doom, red lights painting his face in hellish shades. "Come on, you bucket of bolts," he muttered, slamming his fist against the panel. He'd poured everything into this: savings, sanity, his entire life. Burnout, that was for amateurs. He was Max Harlan, the guy who coded through all-nighters fueled by black coffee and sheer willpower. But now, as the ship skidded across the endless sands, kicking up storms of rust-colored dust, he wondered if this was the universe's way of saying, "Enough with the hustle, kid." The impact jarred him like a thunderclap. Metal twisted, sparks flew, and then, silence, eerie, absolute silence, broken only by the hiss of escaping air from a cracked seal. Max unstrapped himself, his body aching from the G-forces, and stumbled to the airlock. The planet's atmosphere was breathable, miraculously so, but the heat hit him like a wall when he cracked the door. Twin suns blazed overhead, turning the landscape into a furnace of rippling mirages. Endless dunes stretched in every direction, broken only by jagged rock formations that looked like the bones of some ancient giant. He should have been panicking. His comms were dead, no signal to bounce off the nearest relay. Supplies, a week's worth of ration packs and a toolkit that suddenly felt laughably inadequate, but Max Harlan didn't do panic. He did pivot. "Okay," he said to himself, wiping sweat from his brow. "Assess, adapt, execute, that's the mantra." He stepped out onto the scorching sand, boots sinking in, and began scavenging what he could from the wreckage. A solar charger, a multi-tool, his trusty neural implant for interfacing with tech, small mercies in a sea of disaster. Hours blurred into a haze of labor under those merciless suns. He jury-rigged a shelter from salvaged panels, shading it with a tarp that billowed like a ghost in the hot wind. Dehydration clawed at his throat, but he rationed water with the precision of a man who'd balanced venture capital spreadsheets. As dusk fell, swift and sudden, painting the sky in bruised purples, Max collapsed against a rock, staring at the emerging stars. They mocked him, those distant lights, reminding him of the boardroom pitches where he'd promised investors the stars and more. Humanity's destiny, he'd said, all charisma and confidence. Now, he was just a speck, alone on a forgotten world. That's when he heard it, a low hum, vibrating through the ground like the approach of thunder. Max bolted upright, heart pounding. Shadows lengthened across the dunes, but this wasn't natural. Silhouettes tall, graceful, moving with predatory elegance emerged from the twilight, 3 figures, cloaked in shimmering armor that caught the fading light like liquid silver. They weren't human. No, these were something else entirely. Women? The curves of their forms suggested it, but enhanced, almost ethereal. As they drew closer, Max's breath caught. The leader stepped forward first, her hair a cascade of pure white that glowed faintly against the encroaching night, like moonlight woven into strands. Her skin was alabaster pale, flawless under the alien suns, and her ears delicate, pointed like those of ancient elves from forgotten myths, twitched slightly as she scanned the horizon. She wore a form-fitting suit of iridescent fabric, elegant yet revealing, hugging her voluptuous figure in a way that was both regal and dangerously alluring. High slits along the thighs exposed toned legs that seemed sculpted for both speed and seduction, and a low neckline hinted at the strength beneath her curves. Behind her, 2 others flanked her, sisters, by the identical poise and features. One had the same white hair tied in a warrior's braid, her eyes a piercing violet. The other, with hair flowing loose, carried a staff that hummed with energy. They were from Zerathia. Max would learn later, a realm of starfaring warriors where genetic enhancements turned mortals into demigods. But in that moment, as they surrounded his makeshift camp, he only knew fear laced with an inexplicable pull. The leader, Lyra, her name was tilted her head, her full lips curving into a smile that was equal parts curiosity and command. "Human," she said, her voice a melodic rumble that sent shivers down his spine. It wasn't English, but his implant translated seamlessly, pulling the words from some universal ether. You trespass on sacred sands, yet you live, how intriguing. Max scrambled to his feet, hands raised in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Hey, ladies or warriors, I didn't mean to drop in uninvited. Ship crashed, total wipeout, I'm just trying to, not die out here. His voice cracked a bit, betraying the exhaustion he'd been ignoring. Who were they? Angels? Demons? His mind raced through sci-fi tropes he'd devoured in late-night binges, but nothing prepared him for this. The second sister, Zara, laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Her white hair framed a face of sharp beauty, her pointed ears adorned with glowing studs that pulsed like heartbeats. She was the tallest, her body a masterpiece of engineered grace, the suit clinging to her ample bosom and narrow waist like a second skin. Look at him, sisters, so fragile, yet he builds, a creator among the stars. She circled him slowly, her gaze appraising, lingering in ways that made Max's cheeks flush despite the cooling air. Nara, the youngest by appearance, though ageless in her enhancements, stepped closer. Her hair fell in wild waves, and her eyes sparkled with mischief. The fabric of her attire shimmered, translucent in places that teased without revealing, accentuating the sway of her hips as she moved. He reeks of desperation, she purred, leaning in until he could smell a faint, exotic scent like jasmine mixed with ozone. But there's fire in him. Zarathian fire? No, something. Primitive. Human. Lyra raised a hand, silencing them. Her presence was magnetic, drawing Max's eyes to the elegant curve of her neck, the subtle glow of runes etched into her skin. We are the Triad of Zarathia, she declared, her voice wrapping around him like silk. Guardians of these forsaken worlds. Your vessel's distress call pierced our veil. Faint, but persistent, we came to claim what falls from the sky. Her eyes locked onto his, violet depths swirling with secrets. But you are no mere debris. Tell us, little star wanderer, what drives a lone human to challenge the void? Max swallowed hard, his mind whirling. Claim? That didn't sound good. But there was something in her tone, not threat, exactly, but a challenge, an invitation. He straightened, channeling the pitch he'd given to a room full of skeptics back home. Name's Max Harlan. I'm building the future interstellar travel for everyone, crashed here on a test run. Burned out, yeah, but not done. If you're offering help, I'm all ears. He gestured vaguely at his pointed-eared visitors, then winced at the unintended pun. Zara chuckled again, exchanging glances with her sisters. Bold, he jests in the face of fate. Nara's hand brushed his arm, electric, warm, and Max jerked back, pulse racing. Lyra's smile deepened. Help, perhaps, but first, you rest. The sands demand tribute from intruders. Tonight, under our watch, you will recover. Before he could protest, they moved as one, their enhanced bodies blurring with speed. Zara and Nara hauled debris from his crash site with effortless strength, while Lyra guided him toward a shimmering portal that materialized from thin air, a Zarathian outpost. Hidden in the dunes, Max's protests died on his lips as the world shifted, the desert giving way to a chamber of glowing crystals and silken cushions. The air was cooler, scented with that intoxicating jasmine ozone mix. They settled him on a low divan, their forms close, too close. Zara's thigh pressed against his as she knelt, offering a vial of luminous liquid. Drink, it mends the weary flesh. Nara's fingers traced his temple, activating his implant with a touch that sent warmth flooding his veins, and Lyra, she loomed over him, her white hair framing a face that could launch 1,000 ships or crash them. You humans, she murmured, her breath ghosting his skin, you chase the stars with such fragile hearts. But in Zarathia, we know the true power of rest. Tonight, you will lie between us, in our embrace. You rebuild. Max's heart hammered. Between them, the words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Was this rescue or captivity? Seduction or strategy? As their bodies pressed in, soft yet unyielding, he felt the weight of the galaxy shift. Little did he know, this was just the beginning, the spark that would ignite a fire across the stars, where a burned-out founder from Earth would become the unlikely savior of an alien triad, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in machines or might, but in the raw, unyielding spark of connection. The chamber hummed with latent energy, crystals pulsing like living hearts. Max sipped the vial, a sweet fire blooming in his chest, easing the aches he'd carried for months. Back home, burnout had been his shadow, endless meetings, code that wouldn't compile, investors breathing down his neck. Here, in this alien sanctum, it felt distant, almost laughable. Zara's hand lingered on his shoulder, her touch firm, reassuring. Your kind pushes too hard. she said softly, her violet eyes reflecting the crystal light. Zarathians enhance our forms, but even we know the body rebels without pause. Nara nodded, her wild hair brushing his cheek as she adjusted a cushion behind him. Tell us of your world, Max. These startups, are they like our war clans, forging alliances in the void? Her voice was playful, but there was a hunger in it, a curiosity that made his skin tingle. Lyra watched him intently, her pointed ears twitching as if catching whispers from the ether. Speak freely. We are bound by the Triad's oath, no harm to the worthy lost. Her suit shifted slightly as she leaned closer, the fabric whispering against her curves, revealing just enough to stir the imagination. Max felt a flush creep up his neck, but he met her gaze. It's complicated. Earth in 2025, we're all hustling, building apps, chasing funding, dreaming of Mars but settling for the next big app. Me, I wanted more. Stellar Forge was my shot at the stars, literally. But one glitch, one bad weld, and boom, here I am, crashing your party. The sisters exchanged looks, a silent communication that spoke of shared histories. Zara's laugh was richer this time, vibrating through him. A glitch. Such a small thing topples your mighty dreams, yet you rise, unbroken. There is honor in that. She pressed a cool cloth to his forehead, her fingers lingering, tracing the line of his jaw. The gesture was intimate, almost tender, and Max's breath hitched. These weren't just warriors, they were beings of depth, their enhanced forms hiding vulnerabilities he could sense but not yet name. As the night deepened, the outpost's walls seemed to breathe, projecting holographic stars that danced across the ceiling. Nara fetched more of the restorative elixir, her movements fluid, graceful. In Zarathia, we sisters share everything, she explained, handing him the vial with a wink. Strength, secrets, warmth, the implication hung there, teasing the edges of his exhaustion-fogged mind. Max drank deeper, the liquid warming him from within, chasing away the chill of isolation. Lyra settled beside him on the divan, her body a warm presence that made the space feel smaller, more charged. Your crash was no accident, she revealed, her voice low, conspiratorial. Sensors detected a shadow fleet, enemies of Zarathia, the Dravex horde. They tampered with your trajectory, drawing you here as bait. But you survived their trap. Her hand rested on his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. Fate has woven you into our tapestry. Human, rest now. Tomorrow, we hunt the shadows that felled you. Max's eyes widened. Bait, the Dravex. His implant pulled up fragmented data, warlike aliens, raiders of fringe worlds. This wasn't just survival, it was war. But as Zara and Nara flanked him, their bodies forming a protective cocoon, he felt an odd sense of safety. Their scents mingled, jasmine, ozone, and something uniquely feminine, intoxicating. Between us, Zara whispered, her breath warm against his ear. No harm comes, sleep, Max. Let our embrace mend what your stars broke. He wanted to argue, to demand details, but fatigue won. As his eyelids grew heavy, their arms encircled him, Lyra's strong and steady, Zara's enveloping, Nara's playful yet secure. It was surreal, this tangle of limbs and warmth from beings who could snap him like a twig. Yet in that moment, as the holograms swirled above, Max felt alive in a way he hadn't since his first code breakthrough. Humanity's spark, indeed. Little did he know, the real ignition was just beginning. The elixir worked its magic, pulling him into a dreamless slumber deeper than any he'd known. When he awoke, the suns were rising again, casting golden light through the crystal walls. The sisters were already stirring, their suits adjusted but no less alluring in the morning glow. Lyra stood at a console, her white hair tied back, fingers dancing over holographic controls. Zara sharpened a blade that hummed with plasma edge, her muscles flexing under pale skin. Nara stretched languidly, her pointed ears perking as she noticed him watching. Slept like the dead, Max groaned, sitting up. His body felt renewed, no aches, no fog. That stuff's better than any Red Bull. He flexed his hands, marveling at the energy coursing through him. Nara grinned, sauntering over with a sway that demanded attention. Our embrace is the true elixir. Zarathian bonding, it shares vitality. She placed a hand on his arm, and he felt a subtle pulse, like electricity sinking between them. Feel it, your human resilience amplifies it. Before he could process that, alarms blared, low, urgent tones from the console. Lyra's face hardened, her violet eyes flashing. They come, the Dravex scouts. Your crash drew them, as I suspected. She turned to him, her expression a mix of command and something softer, concern. Stay here, Max, we will handle this. But Max was on his feet, adrenaline surging. Like hell, that's my ship they wrecked. If we're fighting, I'm in. He grabbed his multi-tool, feeling ridiculous next to their gleaming weapons, but determination burned in his chest. The sisters paused, exchanging glances that held surprise, then approval. Zara nodded, tossing him a sidearm, a sleek Zarathian pistol that fit his hand like it was made for him. Bold words, human, prove them. Nara's laugh was excited now, her body brushing his as they moved to the outpost's defenses. Lyra led the way, her presence a beacon. As they emerged onto the dunes, the enemy appeared, sleek black shuttles descending like vultures, disgorging armored figures with chitinous exoskeletons and glowing red visors. The Dravex were nightmares made flesh, multi-limbed, hissing through mandibles, weapons spitting energy bolts that scorched the sand. The battle erupted in a frenzy. Lyra moved like a storm, her blade slicing through armor with precision, white hair whipping as she dodged blasts. Zara was a tank, absorbing hits on her enhanced shields, countering with bursts from her rifle that vaporized foes. Nara danced between them, her staff whirling, disrupting shields with sonic waves. Max hung back at first, firing the pistol, its recoil light, accuracy uncanny thanks to implant sync. He hit one scout square in the chest, the alien crumpling in a spray of ichor. Holy shit, he breathed, a grin splitting his face. This was real, raw, visceral. A bolt grazed his shoulder, burning, but he pushed on, using the dunes for cover like in those VR sims he'd coded. Then it escalated. A Dravex heavy dropped from a shuttle, its cannon charging for a wide blast. Nara was exposed, staff raised too late. Time slowed for Max. Without thinking, he lunged, tackling her behind a rock just as the beam scorched the air. They tumbled together, her body soft and firm against his, breath mingling in the chaos. "You saved me," she gasped, eyes wide, pointed ears flushing pink. "Teamwork," he panted, firing back blindly. The heavy roared, advancing, but Lyra and Zara converged, their combined assault shattering its cannon. Zara's shot pierced its core, exploding in a fireball that lit the dunes. The remaining Dravex retreated, shuttles fleeing into the sky. Panting, the triad regrouped around Max. Lyra's hand cupped his cheek, thumb brushing the burn on his shoulder. "Foolish, heroic, you fight like one of us." Zara's arm slung around his waist, pulling him close. Our embracer now, in truth. Nara's kiss on his cheek was featherlight, lingering. The bond deepens. But more come, we must move to the heart of Zarathia. As they retreated to the portal, Max realized this wasn't just survival. It was entanglement of fates, of hearts. The desert planet faded behind them, but the fire within burned brighter. What awaited in Zarathia? Allies, betrayals, passions that could consume stars? Only the void knew, and it whispered promises of glory. The portal's swirl of light deposited them into the heart of Zarathia with a gentle hum, like the sigh of a lover awakening. Max stumbled slightly as solid ground reformed beneath his feet. The transition from scorching dunes to cool, opulent halls leaving him disoriented for a heartbeat. But the sisters' grips on him, Lyra's firm hand at his elbow, Zara's supportive arm around his waist, Nara's playful fingers interlaced with his, kept him steady, their touches lingering like promises yet to be fulfilled. The air here was alive, thick with the scent of blooming night flowers and charged with an electric undercurrent that made his skin prickle. Zarathia wasn't a planet. It was a nexus, a sprawling orbital citadel woven from crystalline spires and living metal, orbiting a gas giant that painted the viewports in swirling auroras of emerald and indigo. Lyra released him first, her violet eyes scanning the grand atrium with the vigilance of a sentinel. Towering arches of translucent quartz arched overhead, etched with glowing runes that pulsed in rhythm with distant heartbeats, perhaps the citadel's own, or the collective life force of its inhabitants. "Welcome to Orali's prime," she murmured, her voice a velvet caress that brushed against his ear, close enough that he felt the warmth of her breath. "Our sanctuary. But beware, Max, sanctuaries hold shadows as deep as their light." Her words carried a weight, a subtle warning laced with intrigue, as if the very walls whispered of secrets she wasn't ready to unveil. Zara guided him forward, her body brushing against his side with deliberate slowness, the curve of her hip pressing just enough to send a jolt through him. Her white hair, still tousled from the battle, caught the soft illumination, framing her face in an ethereal halo. "The Dravex will not follow us here so easily," she said, her tone low and reassuring, yet threaded with a husky edge that made his pulse quicken. "Our shields are woven from starfire. But you need true respite now. The bond we initiated on the sands, it calls for more." Her pointed ears twitched, attuned to sounds he couldn't hear, and as they walked, her free hand trailed lightly down his arm, fingers dancing over the fabric of his flight suit like sparks on dry tinder. Nara, ever the spark of mischief in their triad, squeezed his hand tighter, her wild waves of white hair bouncing as she leaned in from the other side. "Oh, sister, don't tease him so soon," she chided with a laugh that bubbled like champagne, light yet intoxicating. But her eyes, sparkling with violet fire, belied the playfulness. They roamed over him hungrily, lingering on the line of his jaw, the breadth of his shoulders. Her suit, that shimmering second skin, clung to her voluptuous form in the citadel's gentle breeze, the translucent panels shifting to reveal glimpses of pale, flawless skin beneath, teasing, inviting. "Max saved me out there. Tackled me like a hero from your human tales. Doesn't he deserve a proper reward?" The word hung between them, heavy with suggestion, as she pressed closer, her breast grazing his arm in a way that was anything but accidental. Max's throat went dry, the renewed vigor from their earlier embrace warring with a fresh wave of heat that had nothing to do with the elixir. These women, aliens, warriors forged in the fires of cosmic wars, moved with a grace that was both predatory and profoundly sensual, their enhanced bodies radiating an aura of power and vulnerability intertwined. Back on Earth, in the sterile glow of conference rooms and the relentless ping of notifications, he'd forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen, desired not for his code or his pitch, but for the raw essence of who he was. Here, in this alien realm, that forgetfulness shattered like glass under their gazes. Yeah, about that save, he managed, his voice rougher than intended. Just instinct, but if there's a reward involving less sand and more of whatever this is, I'm not complaining. They led him through winding corridors lined with bioluminescent vines that curled like lovers' fingers, the air growing warmer, more intimate as they descended into the private quarters of the triad. Suspense coiled in Max's gut like a spring. What lay ahead? The battle on the dunes had been a skirmish, a taste of the Dravex's fury, but Lyra's warning echoed in his mind. Shadows in the sanctuary. And now, this deepening bond they spoke of. It felt like stepping into a gravity well, pulled inexorably toward something vast and unknown. The sisters' touches grew bolder, more lingering, as if the citadel itself encouraged their closeness, the runes on the walls flickering brighter in response to their proximity. At last, they entered a chamber that stole his breath, a vast, domed room bathed in the soft glow of suspended orbs that mimicked a starry night, though the stars here swirled in hypnotic patterns. The floor was a mosaic of polished obsidian and velvet cushions, scattered like invitations across a central dais. Silken drapes in shades of midnight blue billowed from unseen currents, and in the center, a sunken pool steamed with fragrant waters, its surface rippling with iridescent bubbles that promised restoration on a deeper level. This was no mere bedroom. It was a temple to indulgence, to the sacred act of renewal that Zarathians held as dearly as their battles. Lyra turned to him then, her movements fluid, deliberate, as she unclasped the outer layer of her suit. The fabric parted like water, revealing more of her alabaster skin, the elegant swell of her breasts rising and falling with each breath, nipples faintly visible through the sheer inner lining. "The triad's bond is not given lightly," she explained, her voice dropping to a sultry whisper that resonated in his bones. "It shares essence, strength, spirit, desire. On the sands, we began it to heal you. Here, we complete it." She stepped closer, her pointed ears framing her face like delicate crowns, and traced a finger along his collarbone, sending shivers cascading down his spine. The touch was electric, igniting nerves he didn't know he had, a subtle energy transfer that made his blood hum. Zara followed suit, her own suit loosening with a soft sigh of material, exposing the toned planes of her abdomen, the inviting curve of her hips. She was the embodiment of controlled power, her white hair falling in a braid that she now unraveled, letting it cascade over her shoulders like a veil of silk. "You humans hide your weariness behind walls of will," she murmured, her hand sliding to the zipper of his flight suit, tugging it down inch by inch with agonizing slowness. The cool air kissed his exposed chest, but it was her proximity that heated him, her full lips parting slightly as she leaned in, her breath mingling with his. "We tear those walls down. Let us show you surrender, not defeat, but ecstasy and yielding." Her fingers explored the newly bared skin, light as feathers yet insistent, circling his nipples until they hardened under her touch, drawing an involuntary gasp from him. Nara, not one to be outdone, shed her outer layer entirely, the suit pooling at her feet in a shimmer of light. Her body was a vision, curves lush and inviting, skin glowing with an inner luminescence, her pointed ears adorned with tiny jewels that caught the orb light and sparkled like distant stars. She pressed against his back, her breasts soft and warm against him, hands roaming down his sides to hook into the waistband of his pants. "Feel the pull, Max," she breathed into his ear, her tongue flicking out to trace the lobe, a teasing promise of more. "Our genetics crave connection. Yours," it responds, like a star aligning with its constellation. Her hips ground subtly against him, the friction building a tension that made his knees weaken, desire pooling low in his belly as her fingers dipped lower, brushing the growing hardness beneath his clothes. Max's mind reeled, caught in the web of their seduction, the erotic charge in the air thickening like mist. This wasn't rushed fumbling in some Silicon Valley hookup app aftermath. It was deliberate, ancient, a ritual honed by eons of interstellar evolution. Yet beneath the sensuality lurked suspense. The Dravex threat loomed, their retreat from the dunes a mere pause. Not an end. What if they struck here, in this vulnerable moment? The thought sent a thrill of danger through him, heightening every sensation. Lyra's lips found his neck, kissing a trail of fire upward, her tongue warm and insistent. "Trust us," she whispered against his skin, her hand joining Zara's to push the flight suit from his shoulders. "In our embrace, you find power, but hurry, the shadows stir." He surrendered then, not out of weakness, but a burgeoning hunger that matched theirs. His hands, tentative at first, explored, sliding over Lyra's hips, feeling the silken strength of her enhanced muscles, cupping Zara's face as she captured his mouth in a kiss that was all heat and dominance, her tongue dancing with his in a rhythm that promised conquest and surrender intertwined. Nara's laughter was a soft moan behind him, her body undulating against his as she freed him from the last confines of his clothes, her touch bold, stroking him with a gentleness that belied her warrior's fire. The pool beckoned, its waters lapping invitingly, and they drew him toward it, a tangle of limbs and whispered endearments. Steam rose in curls, carrying the scent of arousal and alien spices as they descended the steps together. The water was perfect, warm, buoyant, caressing like 1,000 fingers. Lyra pulled him down onto her lap, her legs wrapping around his waist, the slick slide of their bodies igniting sparks that danced across the surface. Zara flanked them, her breasts pressing against his back as she nipped at his shoulder, hands roaming freely, teasing, exploring every inch with expert precision. Nara dove in playfully, surfacing to straddle his thigh, her white hair slicked back, eyes locked on his with an intensity that made his heart race. Pleasure built like a gathering storm, suspense weaving through the erotic haze. Each touch, each kiss, deepened the bond, a psychic hum that linked their minds in fleeting glimpses. Lyra's fierce loyalty, Zara's unyielding protectiveness, Nara's wild joy, but amid the bliss, Max sensed it, a distant rumble, like thunder echoing through the void, the Dravex, or something within the citadel itself. He pushed the thought aside, losing himself in the moment, his hands gripping Lyra's thighs as she arched against him, a gasp escaping her lips that was music to his ears. Their bodies moved in sync, water splashing softly, the orbs above dimming as if in deference to their passion. Zara's fingers intertwined with his, guiding him to her core, where heat met heat in a union that blurred the lines between human and alien. Nara's mouth found his again, her kisses fervent, demanding, while Lyra's hands urged him deeper, her pointed ears brushing his cheek in tender contrast to the building frenzy. Climax approached like a supernova, inevitable and blinding, but just as release crested, a sharp alert pierced the chamber, harsh, insistent, shattering the erotic spell. The sisters froze, their enhanced senses snapping to attention. Lyra's eyes narrowed, water dripping from her lashes. "They've breached the outer veil," she hissed, desire warring with duty in her voice. Zara disentangled with reluctance, her body glistening, a flush of unspent passion coloring her pale cheeks. The horde advances. "Our bond must wait." Nara's hand lingered on him a moment longer, a promise in her touch. "But not forever, hero. This fire will fan it to stars." Max rose with them, adrenaline surging anew, the erotic interlude fueling rather than sapping his strength. Clad once more in the haste of warriors, they moved toward the armory, the citadel's alarms a siren's call to battle. Yet even as danger loomed, the memory of their embrace burned in him, a secret weapon, a human spark that could turn the tide. The shadows of Zarathia were closing in, but so was destiny, and Max Harlan, once a burned-out dreamer, now stood at its erotic, suspenseful heart. The armory doors hissed open with a pneumatic sigh that cut through the blaring alarms like a knife through silk, revealing a cavernous hall lined with racks of gleaming weaponry that hummed with barely contained power. Max's heart thundered in his chest, the lingering heat from the pools, embrace still simmering in his veins, transforming what should have been fear into a fierce, exhilarating rush. Lyra moved like a shadow given form, her half-donned suit snapping into place with a taut, Zarathian tech at its finest, reshaping around her curves as if jealous of any exposure. To the vanguard decks, she commanded, her voice a whip-crack of authority that brooked no argument, yet beneath it pulsed the raw edge of the passion they'd almost unleashed. Zara snatched a brace of plasma lances from the wall, her white hair whipping as she tossed one to Max, the weapon's grip molding to his palm with an intuitive warmth. "Fight as one, human," she growled, her violet eyes locking onto his with intensity that made the air crackle. Nara, ever the whirlwind, grabbed a disruptor gauntlet, her laughter edged with something darker now, thrilling, almost manic, as she bumped her hip against his in passing. "Let's paint the stars with their blood, lover. Show them what our bond can do." They sprinted through the corridors, the Citadel's elegant arches blurring into streaks of crystal light as emergency protocols kicked in, sealing bulkheads behind them with thunderous clangs. The alarms wailed on, a relentless chorus that built the tension like a storm gathering force. But Max felt strangely alive, the Triad's vitality coursing through him like liquid fire. The bond, it wasn't just physical. It was a bridge, faint echoes of their thoughts brushing his mind, Lyra's steely resolve, Zara's protective fury, Nara's gleeful anticipation. What secrets did this connection hold? He wondered, curiosity gnawing at him even as boots pounded against the deck. Back on Earth, battles were boardroom skirmishes, one with data and deals. Here, it was visceral, the air thick with the ozone tang of charging weapons and the metallic bite of impending violence. The Vanguard deck exploded into view, a vast observation blister overlooking the orbital void, where Zarathia's defenses shimmered like a web of diamond filaments against the gas giant's swirling storms. But the view twisted Max's gut. Dravek's assault craft, jagged black thorns against the Aurora, were clawing through the outer shields, their hulls spitting boarding pods like venomous barbs. Explosions bloomed in silent fireballs, debris spiraling into the abyss. By the Void Mother, Lyra breathed, slamming a console to activate the primary cannons. Her fingers flew over the holographs, but doubt flickered in her eyes, something unspoken, a crack in her unbreakable facade. "Their numbers, they've adapted, our veil should have held." Zara shouldered her lance, positioning herself at a firing port, her body taut as a bowstring. "Traitors within," she snarled, the words surprising Max like a slap. Traitors, in Zarathia, the revelation hung there, dramatic and chilling. As a proximity alert screamed, a boarding pod had latched onto the hull, its cutters whining like tortured souls. The deck shuddered, lights flickering, and then the breach alarms joined the fray, a deafening roar that vibrated through their bones. "Not just any traitors," Zara continued, her voice dropping to a dramatic whisper that cut through the chaos. "One of our own, a sister from the outer clans, she's fed them the shield codes." Nara's face paled, her pointed ears flattening against her skull in shock. "Vexa? No," she swore the Triad oath. The name hit Max like a revelation. Vexa, another white-haired warrior, perhaps from the list of names whispered in Zarathian lore, but there was no time for questions. The hull plating buckled with a screech of rending metal, and Dravek's horrors poured through, hulking brutes with segmented limbs, mandibles clacking, energy whips crackling in their claws. The air filled with the acrid stench of ionized air and alien ichor as the first wave charged. The battle ignited in a maelstrom of light and fury, thrilling in its raw immediacy, every sense assaulted. Lyra unleashed the cannons first, a sweeping arc of plasma that vaporized two pods in a spectacular bloom of superheated gas, the shockwave rattling the blister and sending Max staggering. But the Draveks were relentless, their forms adapting mid-stride, chitinous armor shifting to deflect the blasts. Zara roared, her lance spearing the lead brute through its core. It exploded in a spray of acidic fluid that sizzled against her suit, but she didn't flinch, pivoting to shield Nara with her body. "For the Triad," she bellowed, the cry echoing like a war hymn. Max dove into the fray, the plasma lance heavy but responsive in his hands, its targeting overlay syncing with his implant in a seamless dance. He fired on instinct, the bolt lancing through a Dravek's flanker's visor, dropping it in a twitching heap. Adrenaline surged, but it was the bond that elevated him, the sister's movements feeding into his awareness, a thrilling synchronicity. He anticipated Zara's charge, covering her flank as she cleaved through a pair of drones. Nara's disruptor wave rippled out, and he rolled with it, using the shock to blast a crawler off her back. "You're incredible," he shouted over the din, curiosity sparking even in the chaos. How deep did this link go? Could he feel their pain, their pleasure? In battle as in the pool? but the climax built with dramatic inevitability, the Dravex pressing harder, their numbers swelling as more pods latched on. A massive warbeast, easily twice Zara's height, its hide rippling with embedded cannons, bellowed through the breach, its roar shaking the deck. It swatted a Zarathian defender aside like a doll, the poor soul crumbling against the viewport in a spray of blood that smeared the stars. Lyra's cannons faltered, a feedback surge from the console sparking wildly. "The core's overloading," she cried, her voice cracking with rare vulnerability, violet eyes wide with the thrill of desperation. Surprise struck like lightning. From the shadows of a side corridor, a figure emerged, not Dravex, but Zarathian, Vexa, her white hair matted with grime, suit torn to reveal the seductive curves that marked her as one of them, pointed ears scarred from old battles, but her eyes burned with betrayal's fire, a disruptor rifle leveled not at the enemy, but at Lyra's back. "The old ways die tonight, sisters," Vexa hissed, her voice a dramatic thunder that silenced the melee for a heartbeat. Zarathia chained to human weakness? Never. The Dravex promise freedom, raw power, without your simpering bonds. Time fractured. Max's mind reeled, the curiosity exploding into shock. Vexa, the traitor, her form as alluring as the triads yet twisted by ambition. Nara spun, her gauntlet humming, but Vexa fired first, the bolt grazing Nara's shoulder in a burst of agony that Max felt echo through the bond like a knife to his own flesh. Nara crumpled, gasping, her wild hair splaying across the deck. Zara whirled, lance raised, but the warbeast charged between them, its cannon priming with a whine that promised annihilation. In that suspended moment, the climax crested with thrilling, heart-stopping drama. Max acted on pure, human instinct, the underdog spark that HFY legends were made of. He lunged, not at Vexa, but at the warbeast, jamming his lance into its underbelly joint where the armor gapped. The weapon overloaded in a spectacular feedback, exploding in a chain reaction that ripped the beast apart from within. Guts and shrapnel flew, the blast wave hurling Max backward into the console, pain lancing through his side as he crashed. But it bought the time. Zara's lance pierced Vexa's rifle, shattering it, and Lyra's countershot, a desperate plasma surge, sent the traitor sprawling, her body convulsing as the energy coursed through her enhancements. The Dravex faltered, their cohesion breaking without Vexa's guidance, the remaining horde routed by the Triad's renewed fury. Zara hauled Nara to her feet, the wound cauterized but throbbing, while Lyra knelt by Max, her hands glowing with healing runes as she pressed them to his gash. You turn the tide," she whispered, her face inches from his, actual tears glistening in her violet depths. The surprise in her eyes mirrored his own. He'd saved them, not with tech or troops, but with that raw, unpredictable human grit. But curiosity burned brighter now, amid the thrilling afterglow of victory. As the last Dravex pod detonated in the void, Vexa stirred, coughing ichor, her seductive form battered but unbroken. "Fools," she rasped, a surprising smirk curling her lips despite the pain. "You think this ends the shadows. The Dravex queen herself stirs in the outer rims, and your bond, it hides a secret that will shatter Zarathia." Her words hung like a dramatic cliff, thrilling in their vagueness, sparking a whirlwind of questions in Max's mind. What secret? A queen? As the sisters bound her, the Citadel's alarms faded to a wary hum, but the air thrummed with unresolved tension, the climax of this skirmish merely the prelude to a greater storm. Lyra helped Max stand, her touch lingering, charged with the electric aftermath of battle and the unspoken promise from the pool. "We must interrogate her," she said, voice steadying, but her eyes on Max held a new depth, admiration, desire, curiosity about this human who defied the stars. Zara nodded, supporting Nara, whose wound knit under the bond's influence, her mischievous smile returning faintly. "And you, our embracer, you fought like a god among mortals." But Vexa's words, they unsettle. They dragged the traitor to a secure hold, the deck scarred and smoking, the viewport cracked but holding against the void. As they moved, Max felt the Triad's presence more acutely, the bond pulsing with shared exhaustion and triumph. The surprising revelation of Vexa's betrayal had cracked open doors to deeper mysteries, Zarathia's underbelly, perhaps fractures in their perfect society. Thrilling possibilities swirled, alliances forged in fire, passions reignited amid peril. But for now, in the dramatic hush following the storm, Max allowed himself a breath, the human hero in an alien embrace, wondering what surprising turns the galaxy held next. The war was far from over, and neither was the fire between them. The secure hold was a stark contrast to the opulent chambers, a dimly lit vault reinforced with force fields that hummed like angry bees, the air cooler, laced with the faint tang of containment fields. Vexa was secured to a restraint chair, her white hair disheveled, pointed ears drooping slightly, but her voluptuous form still exuded that dangerous allure, her torn suit clinging in ways that distracted even in captivity. The sisters formed a semicircle around her, Lyra's blade at her throat, Zara's lance humming inches from her chest, Nara bandaged but fierce, glaring with betrayed fire in her eyes. Max stood slightly apart, the wound on his side throbbing dully, but curiosity overrode the pain. Who was Vexa really? A fallen sister? A pawn in a larger game? "Speak, betrayer," Lyra demanded, her voice a dramatic crescendo of hurt and rage, the blade nicking Vex's pale skin just enough to draw a thin line of luminescent blood. "Why? We shared the Triad's flame, you were one of us." Vex's laugh was surprising, low, throaty, laced with erotic undertones even now, as if defiance was her ultimate seduction. "One of you? Blind followers of a crumbling code." She lifted her chin, eyes locking onto Max with a thrilling, predatory gleam. "Look at him, the human. Fragile, yet he slays beasts. That's the future, Lyra, not your precious bonds, chaining us to ritual and restraint. The Dravex Queen, Aurel of the Void's swarm, offers liberation. Genetic supremacy without the leashes of tradition. She'll remake Zarathia in her image, stronger, wilder." The words landed like bombs, each one more surprising than the last. Aurel, a queen, Max's implant flickered with partial data, legends of the Void swarm, a Dravex matriarchy that devoured worlds. But Zara stepped forward, her face a mask of dramatic fury, lance pressing closer. "Lies, the swarm consumes all. What hold does she have over you?" Vex's smirk deepened, her body shifting subtly in the restraints, the motion accentuating her curves in a way that was almost hypnotic. "Hold? Desire, sister," Aurel's touch. "It awakens what your triad suppresses. Power without the simpering embrace. She promised me a place at her side, and you, Max, as the prize, a human pet to break and bend." Her gaze on him turned curious, appraising, sending an unwelcome shiver down his spine. Thrilling, in a dark way, the idea of being wanted, even by an enemy, but dramatic in its perversion of the bond he just forged. Nara snarled, her hand clenching the gauntlet. "Touch him, and I'll rend you atom by atom." But surprise flashed across her features as Vexa leaned forward, whispering, "The secret in your bond, little sister, it's not just vitality, it's a key, a human catalyst that could unlock Zarathia's forbidden archives. Aurel knows, she'll come for it." The hold fell silent, the climax of revelation hanging heavy. Lyra's blade trembled, her violet eyes widening in dramatic shock. Impossible. The archives are myth, lost knowledge from the first forge. But doubt crept in, curiosity igniting like a fuse. Max felt it through the bond, a surge of uncertainty from all three, mingling with his own thrilling bewilderment. What archives? What key was he? Before answers could spill, the citadel lurched violently, a deep, resonant boom that shook the vault, light strobing red. "Another breach," Zara shouted, the alarms reigniting in a frenzy. Vex's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Too late, the Queen's vanguard is here." They burst from the hold, drama escalating into pure thrill as they raced back to the vanguard deck. The viewport revealed horror, a colossal Dravex dreadnought, its maw-like prow disgorging swarms of fighters, Aurel's banner, a swirling vortex emblazoned on its hull. Boarding clamps latched with metallic screams, and fresh waves of horrors flooded the corridors. The battle renewed with climactic fury, but now laced with the surprising weight of prophecy. Max fought beside the Triad, lance blazing, each kill a step deeper into the mystery. As they carved through the onslaught, Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "The archives. If true, Max, you could be our salvation or our doom." The thrill built, curiosity a relentless driver, as they pushed toward the dreadnought's bridge. Surprises awaited, hidden allies, betrayals within. In this dramatic symphony of war and wonder, Max Harlan, the unlikely human heart of it all, charged forward, the galaxy's secrets unfolding like a lover's whisper in the storm. The corridors leading to the docking clamps twisted like the innards of some colossal beast, slick with the residue of breached plasma conduits and littered with the twitching remnants of Dravex drones that sparked fitfully in their death throes. Max's lungs burned as he kept pace with the Triad. The plasma lance still warm in his grip from the frantic barrage that had cleared their path, but the bond thrummed between them now like a live wire, carrying not just their shared resolve but flashes of their inner turmoil, Lyra's gnawing doubt about the archives, Zara's simmering rage at Vex's betrayal, Nara's undercurrent of pain masked by defiant spark. It was overwhelming, this psychic intimacy, making every step feel like a dance on the edge of a knife. The dreadnought loomed through the fractured viewport ahead, its jagged silhouette a dramatic silhouette against the gas giant's roiling storms, promising not just victory, but the unraveling of secrets that could topple empires. "The bridge is 2 decks up," Lyra panted, her white hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, her suit's tears revealing glimpses of pale skin that, even in the height of crisis, stirred something inconvenient in Max's gut. "We breach. We end Aurel's vanguard before she claims the key." Zara grunted in agreement, her braids swinging like a pendulum as she kicked aside a mangled Dravex limb, its claws scraping the deck with a pathetic skitter. "And if the archives are real, if this human spark of yours unlocks them." Her voice was a dramatic rumble, laced with the weight of prophecy, but she shot Max a sidelong glance that held a flicker of awkward amusement. "Don't suppose your earthly startups come with a user manual for cosmic vaults." The quip landed awkwardly, her warrior poise cracking just enough to reveal the strain, and Max couldn't help but bark a short, humorless laugh, even as a fresh squad of Dravex scuttled from a side vent, their mandibles clacking like ill-tempered castanets. "Ha, if only," Max shot back, firing a bolt that vaporized the lead drone in a puff of acrid smoke. "My last pitch deck was for faster-than-light Wi-Fi, didn't cover unlocking alien Armageddon boxes." The humor felt forced, a desperate boy in the swelling drama, but it eased the tension for a split second, Nara's chuckle bubbling up like a lifeline amid the chaos. She fired her disruptor, the wave rippling out to scramble the squad's shields, but one slipped through, latching onto her leg with a vice-like grip. She yelped more surprise than pain, and Max lunged, yanking it free with a grunt that pulled at his bandaged side. Their bodies collided in the scramble, her curves pressing against him in a tangle of limbs that was equal parts rescue and ridiculous, her pointed ears brushing his cheek as she twisted away. "Whoops, sorry, hero," she gasped, her violet eyes wide with mock embarrassment, but the flush on her pale cheeks betrayed the awkward spark of proximity, the bond amplifying the accidental intimacy into something electric and untimely. They pressed on, the drama heightening with every meter, the Citadel's groans echoing like the death rattles of a wounded giant. Alarms wailed in discordant harmony, red strobes painting their faces in bloody hues, and the air grew thicker, choked with the metallic tang of ozone and the underlying musk of exertion. Lyra led the charge up a maintenance ladder, her enhanced strength making light work of the rungs, but when Max followed, his foot slipped on a slick patch of coolant, courtesy of a ruptured line, and he slid halfway down, arms flailing comically before Zara hauled him up by the collar like a wayward kitten. "Graceful as a space eel, aren't you?" she teased, her voice husky with effort, but her grip lingered a beat too long on his arm, the touch sending a jolt through the bond that made him hyper-aware of her warmth, her scent, that jasmine ozone allure cutting through the battle reek. Awkward didn't begin to cover it. Here they were, storming an enemy dreadnought, and all he could think was how her braid tickled his shoulder, or how Nara's earlier yelp still echoed in his mind like a flirtatious invitation gone wrong. "Remind me to patent anti-slip boots for zero-G hustles," Max muttered, scrambling the rest of the way up, his face burning under the helmet light. The humor diffused the edge of panic, but the drama coiled tighter as they breached the final bulkhead to the docking tube, a narrow, tubular bridge linking Aurali's prime to the dreadnought's maw, its transparent walls offering a vertigo-inducing view of the void beyond. Dravex sentries patrolled the far end, their segmented bodies silhouetted against the stars. Worse, holographic emitters projected illusions of Aurel herself, towering, regal, her form a nightmarish blend of Zarathian grace and Dravex ferocity, white hair twisted into thorny crowns, eyes like black holes promising oblivion. "Surrender the key, sisters," her illusion boomed, the voice a dramatic thunder that vibrated the tube, "or watch your precious citadel fracture like the lies you cling to." Lyra snarled, her blade igniting with a plasma hiss. "Illusions won't save you, Queen. Your pawn Vexus spilled her guts, literally, if we have our way." But as they advanced, the tube shuddered, emergency fields flickering, and a squad of elite Dravex, sleeker, faster, with energy lances of their own ambushed from concealed alcoves. The fight erupted in confined fury, no room for grand sweeps, just brutal, up-close savagery that heightened the drama to claustrophobic extremes. Zara impaled one through the thorax, its ichor splattering her suit in viscous globs that she wiped away with a grimace. "Ugh, like fighting in a bug bath," she quipped, the humor wry and awkward as a glob landed on Max's boot, squelching underfoot. He fired back-to-back with Nara, their shoulders bumping in the tight space. Her hip grazing his thigh in a way that sent unwelcome distractions firing through the bond, desire flickering amid the adrenaline, making his next shot veer just enough to singe Zara's braid instead of the target. "Oi, watch the hair, embrace her," Zara yelped, batting at the smoldering end, her warrior dignity cracking into comedic outrage. The moment was pure awkward gold. Zara, the unyielding tank, fussing over her singed braid like a diva at a bad salon, while a Dravex lunged at her exposed back. Max corrected mid-laugh, blasting the attacker into oblivion, but the bond betrayed him, flooding him with Zara's mix of annoyance and amusement, a psychic tickle that nearly doubled him over. "Sorry, bonds got me seeing double, or feeling your bad hair day," he gasped, the humor lightening the peril even as another elite closed in, its whip cracking like lightning. Nara spun, her disruptor humming, but the tube's instability threw her off balance, and she stumbled into Max, their bodies colliding in a heap that pinned him against the wall. Her breasts pressed against his chest, her legs slung over his in the tangle, and for a frozen, dramatically awkward second, the battle faded, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling hot and fast, her pointed ears twitching as the bond surged with a rush of shared heat. "Well, this is cozy," she whispered, her voice a breathless mix of humor and huskiness, violet eyes sparkling with mischief even as claws scraped nearby. "If we die like this, at least it's not alone." Max's mind blanked, the drama of impending doom clashing hilariously with the erotic undercurrent, his hands instinctively steadying her hips, firm, warm through the suit before he shoved her upright and fired over her shoulder, dropping the elite in a heap. Lyra covered them both, her blade a whirlwind that severed limbs and illusions alike, but the queen's hologram flickered closer, her dramatic monologue swelling, "The human taints you, Triad. His spark will ignite the archive's fire, unleashing weapons that make gods weep. Join me or burn." The words hung heavy, heightening the stakes, but Zara's retort cut through with awkward levity. "Burn? With this hair? Pass, I've got standards." She flicked the singed end dramatically, earning a snort from Nara even as she dispatched another foe. They cleared the tube in a final, frantic push, the docking hatch to the dreadnought hissing open to reveal the beast's innards, a labyrinth of pulsating organic metal corridors, veins of bioluminescent fluid throbbing like arteries. But as they spilled inside, drama peaked in a surprising twist of awkwardness. A concealed trap sprung, not lethal, but disorienting, gas vents hissing a mist that disrupted their enhancements, dulling the Triad's superhuman reflexes to mere mortal levels. Lyra staggered, her blade arm going numb. Zara cursed as her lance's targeting glitched, firing wild. Nara blinked rapidly, her disruptor fizzling. Max, untouched, his human biology immune, suddenly became the anchor, pulling them into cover behind a pulsing bulkhead. "Ha, guess the queen didn't account for baseline Earth plumbing," Max quipped, his voice shaky but laced with humor, even as Dravex reinforcements swarmed the junction ahead, their forms blurring in the gas haze. The awkwardness was palpable. Lyra, ever the poised leader, leaned heavily on him, her body sagging against his in uncharacteristic vulnerability, her white hair tickling his neck as she muttered, This is undignified." Zara, fumbling her reload, bumped into Nara, eliciting a yelp and a half-hearted shove, watch the elbow, tank, that nearly toppled them both into the open. Max stifled a laugh, the scene absurd amid the drama, three demigoddess warriors reduced to bumbling sidekicks, reliant on the fragile human who'd pitched apps for a living. Using the moment, Max hacked a nearby console with his implant, old startup tricks paying off in the unlikeliest way, rerouting the vents to clear the gas for his allies while sealing off the reinforcements. The Triad recovered in waves, strength returning with grateful glances that mixed drama and reluctant humor. You saved us again," Lyra admitted, her voice thick with emotion, hand squeezing his shoulder a tad too intimately, the bond humming with her unspoken awe, but Zara's grin was wolfish. "Don't let it go to your head. Embrace her. Next time, I'll carry you, singed hair and all." They advanced deeper into the dreadnought, the drama unrelenting. Awkward encounters with malfunctioning doors, Zara getting her braid caught in one, cursing creatively, and humorous misfires from glitched weapons keeping the tension from snapping entirely. Yet beneath the levity, the queen's illusions taunted, her voice echoing, "Come closer, keybearer. The archives await your touch and Zarathia's fall." Max felt the weight, the bond pulsing with the triad's fears. But his human spark, fueled by humor in the face of absurdity, kept them moving. The bridge loomed ahead, a throbbing heart of command, promising climactic revelations. But for now, in this heightened dance of drama and mishap, they were unbreakable, a mismatched family forged in fire, awkwardness, and a touch of the ridiculous. The bridge access was a fortified nexus, guarded by Aurel's personal elite, hulking guardians with symbiotic armor that adapted to threats in real time. Their mandibles humming with psychic disruptors that clawed at the mind. The gas's aftereffects lingered, making every move a gamble, and as they burst through the antechamber, drama exploded anew. Lyra's blade clashed with the first guardian's shield in a shower of sparks, but her footing slipped on the organic deck, still slick from the mist, and she overextended, the creature's claw raking her thigh in a gash that welled luminescent blood. She hissed in pain, staggering back into Max, their collision sending him sprawling awkwardly atop her, his lance skittering away. "Not the time for wrestling," she gasped, but her violet eyes held a spark of humor, even as pain lanced through the bond, making Max wince. Zara and Nara dove in, Zara's lance piercing the guardian's joint with a satisfying crunch, but in her zeal, she swung wide, clipping a console that triggered a holographic burst, Aurel's face materializing life-size, looming over them with dramatic menace. Pathetic, reduced to farce by your own traps. Nara, dodging a swipe, tripped over Max's discarded lance, landing butt first on Zara's foot with a thud that drew a yelp from the taller sister. "Oh, Nara, your landing gear needs work," Zara grumbled, the humor bubbling up absurdly as she kicked the guardian's leg out from under it, the beast toppling like a felled tree. Max scrambled up, retrieving his weapon amid the chaos, awkward pileup dissolving into motion as they dispatched the guardians in a flurry of blows and bolts. But the queen's hologram watched, her laughter a dramatic peal that echoed off the walls. "Enter, if you dare, the key's power calls to me." The bridge doors ground open, revealing a cavernous command sphere, Aurel enthroned at its center, real this time, her form a voluptuous terror, white hair coiling like serpents, pointed ears elongated into draconic fins, her suit a lattice of living shadow that accentuated her curves in a way that was both alluring and horrifying. Drama crested as they advanced, but awkwardness struck again. The deck's gravity fluctuated under Dravek's sabotage, sending Nara floating upward in a zero-G tumble, her suit's panels shifting embarrassingly, revealing more than intended. "Not now, you traitorous tub," she squealed, flailing comically as Max grabbed her ankle, pulling her down, only to lose his own footing and spin them both in a ridiculous twirl. Zara snorted, covering them with suppressive fire. "Ballet in battle. Save it for the victory dance?" Lyra, limping but fierce, slashed at holographic decoys that popped up like whack-a-mole pests, one clipping her ear and sending her hair askew. This is no way for warriors," she muttered, but a reluctant smile tugged at her lips, the humor a shield against the mounting tension. Aurel rose, her presence commanding, the air thickening with psychic pressure that clawed at their bond. The human, such spirit, wasted on these simpering triad. "Join me, Max, your spark could rule, not serve." The offer hung dramatic, tempting, but Max met her gaze, humor stealing his voice. "Rule? Lady, I can barely manage my inbox." "Pass." The triad rallied around him, wounds and all, the awkward skirmishes forging them tighter. As Aurel unleashed her guards, more elites, augmented with Zarathian tech stolen from Vexa, the fight devolved into heightened chaos, Zara's lance jamming mid-swing, forcing her to improvise with a punch that cracked her knuckle. Nara's disruptor backfiring in a harmless sparkler burst that lit up like a party favor. Max, dodging and weaving, felt the bond swell with their shared absurdity, turning potential despair into defiant laughter. Yet the drama deepened as Aurel's claw extended, psychic tendrils snaking toward Max, probing the key within him, a surge of ancient energy that made him gasp. Visions flashing, the archives, vaults of forbidden power, humanity's unforeseen role as catalyst. The triad countered, Lyra's blade clashing with Aurel's shadow lance in a duel of lights, but an awkward fumble, Nara's foot catching on a cable, sent her tumbling into the fray, accidentally tripping Aurel's guard and creating an opening. "Oops, bonus points for style." Nara quipped, rolling to her feet as Max capitalized, his bolt striking true. The battle raged, drama and humor intertwining like lovers in a storm, each awkward mishap a stepping stone to resilience. Aurel's throne cracked under Zara's assault, her illusion of invincibility shattering, but she retreated through a shimmering rift, vowing return. The key will be mine, your farce ends in flames. The triad collapsed in exhaustion as the dreadnought shuddered, self-destruct protocols initiating. They fled back through the tube, gravity whims adding to the slapstick escape, Max and Nara bumping hips in mid-float, Lyra barking orders while dodging debris. Back on O'Reilly's prime, SEALs engaging just in time, they slumped in the Vanguard deck, laughter mingling with gasps. You turned humiliation into heroism, Lyra said, her hand on Max's knee, awkwardly intimate in the aftermath. Zara nodded, fiddling with her singed braid. Next time, we braid-proof the weapons. Nara winked, and 0G cuddles? Practice makes perfect. The humor lingered, lightening the dramatic pall of Aurel's escape. But the bond whispered of greater trials, the archive's call growing louder, awkward alliances solidifying into something unbreakable. The Vanguard deck, still scarred from the earlier onslaught, felt like a fragile sanctuary now, its cracked viewport framing the receding glow of the dreadnought's self-destruction, a distant fireworks display in the cosmic night that left an uneasy hush in its wake. Max leaned against a console, his body aching from the absurd tumbles and near misses, but the triad's presence enveloped him like a warm shield, their shared laughter fading into heavy breaths that spoke of deeper needs. Lyra's hand, still on his knee from that lingering touch, traced a slow circle, her violet eyes meeting his with an intensity that bridged the gap between warrior and woman, the bond humming softly between them like a shared heartbeat. Zara, fiddling with her singed braid, let it fall loose over her shoulders, the strands catching the emergency lights in a way that softened her fierce edges, while Nara stretched languidly beside him, her body brushing his in casual yet deliberate ways that reignited the embers from their interrupted poolside ritual. The drama of Aurel's escape and the looming shadow of the archives hung over them, but in this stolen moment, survival demanded more than strategy. It craved connection, the kind that healed from within. We can't keep fighting on fumes, Lyra murmured, her voice a gentle command that pulled them all closer, the air in the deck thickening with unspoken invitation. She rose slowly, her suit's tears mended partially by the Citadel's auto-repair fields, but the glimpses of her pale, flawless skin remained, a teasing reminder of vulnerability and strength intertwined. The bond requires completion, full essence sharing. It's how we Zarathians reclaim our fire after the storm. Her words carried a weight of tradition, dramatic in their intimacy, but Zara nodded, her hand finding Max's, fingers interlacing with a firmness that sent warmth spreading up his arm. She's right, Aurel's rift will heal, and she'll return stronger. We need this, us, together to fortify against what's coming. Nara's mischievous smile returned, though softened by exhaustion, as she leaned in, her breath warm against his neck. And after all that 0G fumbling, let's make the real dance one for the stars. Max felt the pull, undeniable and electric, the bond amplifying every glance, every touch into something profound. Back on Earth, intimacy had been rushed transactions amid burnout schedules, swipes and schedules, never this depth of connection. Here, with these alien sisters whose enhanced forms radiated both power and tenderness, it felt like destiny unfolding, a human spark igniting their ancient flames. He nodded, words unnecessary as Lyra led them from the deck, her stride purposeful yet graceful, guiding them through the recovering corridors toward the heart of the Triad's private sanctum. The Citadel's lights dimmed in deference, bioluminescent vines along the walls pulsing in sync with their steps, as if the very structure sensed the shift from battle to bomb. The chamber they entered was the same one from before, the domed haven with its starry orbs and steaming pool, but transformed in the afterglow of crisis. The air heavier with the scent of night flowers and a subtle, inviting musk that seemed to emanate from the sisters themselves. Silken cushions scattered the floor like fallen petals, and the pool's waters rippled invitingly, steam curling upward in lazy spirals that caught the light like whispered secrets. No alarms pierced this space. The Citadel's defenses held firm for now, buying them this precious interlude. Lyra turned to Max, her pointed ears twitching slightly as she reached for the clasps of her suit once more, the fabric parting with a soft sigh to reveal the elegant curves of her body, voluptuous yet toned, her alabaster skin glowing with an inner luminescence that made her seem almost ethereal. "Undress us, embrace her," she invited, her voice a sultry melody, eyes locking onto his with a vulnerability that heightened the moment's drama. "Share in the ritual. Let your human touch awaken what the bond promises." Zara and Nara followed her lead, their suits loosening with fluid ease. Revealing forms that were mirrors of perfection, Zara's powerful yet feminine build, her full breasts rising with each breath, hips swaying as she stepped closer. Nara's lithe playfulness, her wild white hair framing a body that invited exploration, pale skin flushed with anticipation. Max's hands trembled slightly as he helped, fingers brushing Lyra's shoulders first, sliding the material away to expose the smooth expanse of her back. The subtle runes etched their glowing faintly under his touch. The sensation was intimate, reverent, the bond flooding him with echoes of their pleasure, a soft hum of delight that made his own skin tingle. Zara pressed against his side, guiding his hands to her waist, her breath hitching as he traced the curve there, the warmth of her body seeping through to his core. "Like this," she whispered, her voice husky, "gentle but sure, your spark, it ignites us." Nara, never one for patience, captured his lips in a kiss that started playful but deepened into something consuming, her tongue dancing with his in a rhythm that spoke of shared triumphs and lingering desires. Her hands roamed his chest, peeling away the remnants of his flight suit with eager fingers, exposing him to the chamber's warm air. The awkwardness from the battle melted away here, replaced by a natural flow, their bodies drawn together like planets in orbit. Max responded in kind, his palms gliding over Nara's hips, feeling the silken strength beneath, pulling her closer until their forms aligned, skin to skin in a press that was both comforting and arousing. The bond wove through it all, heightening sensations, Lyra's quiet moan as he turned to her, cupping her face and kissing her with a tenderness that surprised even him, her pointed ears brushing his cheeks like delicate feathers. They moved to the cushions as one, a tangle of limbs and whispers, the drama of their recent perils fading into the background as passion took center stage. Lyra lay back first, drawing Max atop her with arms that encircled him possessively, her legs parting to welcome him into the cradle of her body. The connection was profound, a slow union that built with deliberate intensity, her warmth enveloping him in waves of shared ecstasy that the bond amplified for all. Zara and Nara flanked them, their hands exploring, Zara's strong fingers tracing patterns on his back, urging him deeper with gentle pressure. Nara's playful touches along Lyra's sides, eliciting soft gasps that mingled with the air. It was a symphony of intimacy, each movement synchronized through their link, pleasure rippling outward like echoes in the void. Max lost himself in the rhythm, his thrusts measured and passionate, Lyra's body arching to meet him, her violet eyes half-lidded with bliss. The sensation was overwhelming, not just physical, but emotional, the bond revealing glimpses of her soul, the fierce protector yielding to trust, the warrior finding solace in surrender. Zara leaned in, her lips finding his shoulder, kissing along the line of his neck as she positioned herself beside Lyra, her hand guiding his to her own center, inviting him to caress her in turn. The touch there was slick, responsive, her hips rocking subtly against his palm as she murmured encouragements, her white hair spilling across the cushions like a halo. Nara, ever the spark, straddled Lyra's waist lightly, her body undulating in harmony, hands roaming between them all, teasing, connecting, drawing out moans that filled the chamber like music. The air grew thicker, charged with their combined essence, the orbs above dimming further as if to cocoon them in privacy. Max shifted, honoring the triad's balance, withdrawing from Lyra with a lingering kiss to her throat before turning to Zara, who pulled him into her embrace with a hunger that matched her battlefield ferocity. She was stronger, her legs wrapping around him with unyielding yet tender hold, guiding him into her depths where heat and tightness welcomed him like a long-awaited homecoming. The bond surged here, her protectiveness translating to a fierce passion, her nails grazing his back in lines of fire that only heightened the pleasure. Lyra and Nara attended them, Lyra's mouth exploring Zara's breasts with soft, reverent kisses, Nara's fingers intertwining with Max's as he moved, her own body pressing close for shared caresses. Time blurred in the haze of sensation, the 18-plus dance of bodies a celebration of survival and unity. Nara's turn came with playful insistence, pulling Max atop her on the cushions, her wild hair fanning out beneath like a storm cloud. She was lighter, more fluid, her hips rising to meet his in a dance that was both teasing and intense, laughter bubbling into gasps as the bond linked their joys. The sisters wove around them, Zara's hands steadying, Lyra's lips claiming his in turns, creating a web of intimacy where no one was left wanting. It was explicit in its closeness, yet veiled in the poetry of their connection, bodies glistening with a light sheen, breath sinking, the subtle glow of runes on their skin pulsing in time with climaxes that built like gathering stars. Pleasure crested for Max first, a release that shattered through him like a supernova, spilling into Nara with a shared tremor that rippled to the others via the bond, a collective wave that left them all quivering. Lyra and Zara arching in empathetic bliss. They collapsed together then, a heap of sated forms on the cushions, limbs entwined in lazy affection. Zara's head rested on his chest, her pointed ear pressed to his heartbeat. Nara curled against his side, fingers tracing idle patterns. Lyra spooned behind him, her arm draped possessively over his waist. The afterglow was warm, enveloping, the chamber's steam from the untouched pool now a metaphor for the mist of contentment that settled over them. But even in this 18-plus haven, the plot's threads tugged gently, Aurel's vow, the archive's secret key within Max's spark. The bond, now fully forged, whispered hints, visions of ancient vaults deep in Zarathia's core, power that could save or doom. Lyra stirred first, her voice soft against his skin. The essence is shared. We're stronger now, one fire. Unbreakable, Zara hummed agreement, her hand squeezing his. But the queen won't wait. We must seek the archives before she does. Nara yawned, nuzzling closer. After a nap, heroes need recharging. Max smiled into the dim light, the intimacy grounding him amid the stars' chaos. This wasn't just passion, it was alliance, a human heart binding alien souls in ways the galaxy hadn't foreseen. As they drifted toward rest, the Citadel's hum seemed to approve, but distant sensors pinged, a subtle alert, hinting that shadows stirred anew. The night deepened, their bodies a fortress of warmth, but dawn would bring trials, the bond their greatest weapon yet. Yet the peace was fleeting, the afterglow giving way to quiet conversations as they lingered in the cushions, bodies still loosely entwined. Lyra's fingers traced the runes on Zara's arm, a habitual gesture of sisterly affection now inclusive of Max, who lay between them like the axis of their world. The archives, she began, her tone shifting from languid to contemplative. They're said to hold the first forge's secrets, genetic blueprints that birthed Zarathia, if your human essence is the catalyst. She trailed off, violet eyes searching his face, the drama of destiny creeping back in. Zara propped herself on an elbow, her curves shifting enticingly in the low light, but her expression serious. Aurel seeks it for conquest, to twist our enhancements into weapons of domination. But with you, embrace her. It could restore balance, unlock evolutions that heal the fractures Vexa exploited. Nara, draped over his leg, added with a yawn, or make us all glowy superheroes. Either way, sounds fun. Her humor lightened the moment, but the bond carried the undercurrent of urgency, their shared intimacy now a foundation for the trials ahead. Max felt the weight, but also the empowerment, the way their passion had intertwined fates, making him more than a crash-landed founder. He pulled Nara closer, kissing her forehead, then turned to claim Zara's lips in a brief, reaffirming touch, before Lyra drew him into another embrace, her body molding to his once more in a gentle reaffirmation. The chamber's orbs brightened slightly, as if signaling the end of respite, but for now, they savored the closeness, the 18-plus bond a silent vow against the coming storm. As sleep finally claimed them, the Citadel's defenses whispered of incoming probes, Aurel scouts testing the shields, but in their entwined rest, the Triad and their human heart dreamed as one, the passions fire-banked but ready to blaze anew. The galaxy waited, but so did their unity, forged in the most profound of ways. The sanctuary of their entwined rest deepened as the chamber's orbs faded to a gentle twilight, the bioluminescent vines along the walls dimming to a rhythmic pulse that mirrored the steady cadence of their breaths. Max lay at the center of the Triad's embrace, his body still humming with the aftershocks of their shared passion, a profound warmth that seeped into his bones like the first true rest he'd known since the crash. Lyra's arm draped across his chest, her pointed ear nestled against his shoulder, her white hair spilling over him like a silken veil. Zara's strong form curled behind her, a protective barrier even in slumber, her hand resting possessively on his hip. Nara, playful to the last, had draped one leg over his thigh, her wild waves tickling his skin as she sighed contentedly in her sleep. The bond thrummed softly now, a living thread weaving their essences together, not the fervent blaze of intimacy, but a serene undercurrent like the quiet flow of a hidden river beneath the stars. Distant pings from the Citadel's sensors echoed faintly, like whispers from the void, but they were too faint to rouse them, lulling the group into a vulnerable peace where dreams could bridge the gaps between souls. In that liminal space between wakefulness and oblivion, the bond stirred, pulling Max under not into the void of exhaustion, but into a shared vision, a collective dreamscape forged from their unified fire. It began innocently enough, a hazy recreation of the pool's steam rising around them, their bodies entwined once more in languid caresses that echoed the reality they'd just shared. But the scene shifted, the waters turning crystalline and vast, reflecting not the chamber's dome but an infinite expanse of stars, swirling nebulae that birthed galaxies in slow, hypnotic blooms. Max felt the triad's presences beside him, their forms ethereal yet tangible, hands reaching for his in the dream's fluid embrace. "Feel it," Lyra's voice echoed, not from her lips but from the bond itself, a melodic vibration that resonated in his core. "The essence opens doors. The archives call through us." Zara's essence joined, her strength a grounding force in the astral tide. "We've only glimpsed the edges before. With you, Embracer, it unfolds." Nara's laughter rippled through, light and curious, like peeking behind the curtain of the universe. "Don't let go, it's wilder than any battle." Max reached out mentally, his human spark, that raw, unenhanced vitality igniting the vision like a flint to tinder. The stars aligned then, coalescing into a colossal vault suspended in the nebula's heart, the archives of the First Forge, a monolithic structure of living crystal and woven starlight, its surfaces etched with runes that glowed with ancient power. The doors, immense and sealed for eons, parted at their approach, not with a grind of stone but a harmonious chime that sang of creation itself. Inside, holographic tomes floated like fireflies, projecting epochs of Zarathia's history, wars won with genetic fury, alliances forged in the crucibles of black holes, the Triad's ancestors rising as demigods from humble stardust. But as they delved deeper, the vision twisted, the harmonious chime fracturing into a dissonant hum that set Max's ethereal teeth on edge. The holograms shifted, no longer triumphs but shadows, fragmented records of the Forge's dawn, where Zarathia's progenitors, pale-skinned warriors with pointed ears and white hair, were not born of alien evolution, but engineered, created, by hands that looked eerily familiar. Max's heart, or whatever passed for it in the dream, pounded as the central hologram ignited, a towering figure materializing at the vault's core. Not Aurel, not Vexa, but a man, tall, broad-shouldered, with the unenhanced lines of a human from Earth's ancient past, his eyes burning with the same spark Max carried. He wore a simple tunic, but his hands wove the very genetic code that birthed the Zarathians, infusing their DNA with enhancements drawn from cosmic essences, strength from neutron stars, grace from quantum dances, allure from the seductive pull of gravity wells. The catalyst, Lyra's voice whispered in awe, but laced now with a tremor of shock. Zara's essence recoiled slightly, Nara's playfulness evaporating into stunned silence. The hologram spoke, its voice a resonant echo that filled the vault. "I am Elias Thorn, exile of Terra Prime, architect of the Zarathian flame. In my hubris, I sowed the seeds of your empire, binding human ingenuity to the void's wild heart. But beware, the spark I embedded endures, a double-edged blade. It awakens not just power, but the truth, you are my children, engineered for survival, yet chained to my legacy. The one who bears my spark anew will shatter the chains or forge new ones in tyranny's name." Max's mind reeled, the vision pulling him closer to the hologram as if drawn by magnetic fate. Elias's eyes, his eyes, locked onto the dream self of Max, recognition flashing like a supernova. "You, heir of my line, the crash was no accident of stars, it was the Forge's call, drawing you across the eons. Aurel knows this. She, too, carries a fragment of my code, twisted, dominant, seeking to reclaim the archives not for conquest, but for reunion. But Vexa, she was no traitor. She sought to warn you, to reveal that the Triad's bond was the key to awakening me within you." The twist hit like a rift in reality, a powerful surge that shattered the dream's serenity into chaos. The vault trembled, holograms fracturing into shards of light that pierced the ether, and suddenly, the figures of Lyra, Zara, and Nara in the vision wavered, their forms glitching like faulty projections, not illusions, revelations. Flashes assaulted Max, memories not his own, but Elias's, bleeding through the spark. The Triad, Lyra, Zara, Nara were not mere guardians, they were direct descendants, engineered with safeguards to seek out the spark's bearer across generations. Their rescue on the dunes, the interrupted poolside ritual, the battles that bonded them tighter, it was all orchestrated. A subconscious pull from the Forge's programming, drawing Max not as a chance savior, but as the prophesied vessel to revive Elias's consciousness. Aurel, the Dravex queen, wasn't an outsider. She was a rogue lineage, a daughter gone feral, twisted by the void's radiation into a matriarch of shadows, craving the full inheritance. But the deepest surprise lanced through. Vexa hadn't betrayed them. In the vision's torrent, Max saw her final moments before capture, whispering coordinates to a hidden ally, not for Aurel, but to alert the Archive's true guardians. Her confession under interrogation, fabricated by the Bond's own illusions, a defensive protocol triggered by the Triad's proximity to the spark, protecting the secret until the right moment. Vexa's eyes in the hologram pleaded, "Free me from the lie. The Queen comes not to destroy, but to merge. The spark must choose unity or fracture." The vault collapsed around them in the dream, crystal shards raining like stars falling to ruin, and Max jolted awake in the chamber, gasping, the Triad stirring around him in confusion. Their eyes violet, piercing, widened in the dim light, the Bond now a roaring torrent that flooded them with the same visions, the same shattering truths. Lyra sat up first, her pale skin flushed, hand clutching her chest as if to steady a fracturing heart. "Elias, the catalyst, it's you, Max, not just a human, a vessel. We were drawn to you, programmed across bloodlines to find and bond with the spark." Her voice cracked, the stoic leader unraveling in the face of the surprise, tears glistening on her lashes, tears of recognition, of betrayal by their own origins. Zara bolted upright, her powerful frame trembling, white hair disheveled as she stared at Max with a mix of horror and fierce protectiveness. "All of it, the sands, the battles, our embrace, it was fate's script, etched in our genes. Aurel, she's kin, a sister line gone mad." Her hand reached for him instinctively, but paused midway, the awkward drama of their intimacy now layered with cosmic irony. Nara, wide-eyed and uncharacteristically subdued, curled closer despite the revelation, her playful facade shattered. "Vexa, innocent, we condemned her on whispers from the Bond itself. Oh, stars, Max, what have we done? What are we?" The chamber's vines flared brighter, responding to the emotional surge, and the distant pings escalated into urgent alarms, Aurel's probes turning into a full vanguard, the Queen's forces massing at the shields. But the twist's aftershocks rippled deeper. Max felt it now, the spark awakening fully within him, Elias's consciousness stirring like a ghost in his veins, granting flashes of control over the Citadel's systems. Consoles flickered to life unbidden, holograms blooming around them, maps of the Archive's true location, not in the nebula, but buried in Aurali's Prime's core, accessible only through the Triad's blood and the spark's ignition. Max rose shakily, the Triad mirroring him, their naked forms bathed in the holographic glow, vulnerability stark against the encroaching threat. "This changes everything," he said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind, the human grit anchoring them. "I'm not just your embracer, I'm the key to your origins. And Aurel's. We free Vexa, we dive into the Archives, we face this family reunion on our terms." The surprise hung heavy, a powerful pivot that redefined their alliance from passion and battle to something primordial, legacy reborn. Lyra nodded, wiping her eyes, resolve hardening. "Then we choose unity, for Elias, for us." Zara gripped her blade, now materializing from a wall panel under Max's unwitting command. "No more illusions, the truth sets us free." Nara, regaining a spark of her fire, squeezed his hand, "And if Aurel wants a merge, we'll make it one she'll never forget." As the alarms blared to full crescendo, the Citadel shuddering under the first volleys, they dressed in haste, suits reforming around their bodies like loyal skins, rushing toward the core. The twist propelled them forward, surprise fueling a desperate momentum, Vex's cell first, to shatter the lie, then the Archives, to claim the power before Aurel twisted it. Max led now, the spark guiding his steps, Elias's echoes whispering strategies in his mind. The galaxy, once a stage for HFY heroics, revealed itself as a family saga of creation and fracture, with Max at its beating heart. Aurel's dreadnoughts loomed in the viewports, but the real battle was within, against origins unearthed, bonds reforged in truth's fire. The path to the cells wound through the Citadel's underbelly, emergency lights casting long shadows that danced like specters of doubt. Max's implant, now supercharged by the spark, hacked doors with effortless pulses, revealing compartments he'd never known existed. The Triad followed close, their steps synchronized but laced with the raw edge of revelation. Lyra's hand brushed his occasionally, a tentative reaffirmation amid the chaos. "How does it feel?" she asked softly, as they descended a spiraling stair, the alarms a constant drumbeat. "Carrying him, us, inside you. Like I've got a cosmic hangover," Max admitted, a wry human humor slipping through the surprise, but his eyes burned with newfound purpose. But it's clear now, your people aren't just warriors, you're humanity's legacy, out here dancing with the stars while we hustled on Earth. Zara's laugh was bittersweet. And we thought you the fragile ones. Turns out, we're the experiment. Nara punched his arm lightly. Hey, at least the experiment's hot. Bond and all. It reached Vex's cell, the force field shimmering like a veil of deceit. Max extended his hand, the spark flaring, Elias's will channeling through, and the field dissolved in a cascade of sparks. Vexa slumped forward, her white hair matted, voluptuous form bruised but unbroken, pointed ears perked at the intrusion. Her violet eyes widened in shock, then understanding as the bond, now extended through Max, touched her mind, flooding her with the vision's truths. You see it, she whispered, rising unsteadily. The lie, the programming, Aurel isn't conqueror, she's the failsafe, the line meant to cull weak branches if the spark faltered. But it didn't, you're here. The surprise doubled as Vexa clasped Lyra's forearm in warrior greeting, tears mirroring the leaders. Sisters, no more shadows between us. The archives will prove it, Elias hit a protocol. Unity merges all lines, Dravex and Zarathian, into something greater. Aurel fights because she fears obsolescence. Zara's jaw clenched, but she nodded, helping Vexa stand. Then we offer her the truth or end the farce. Alarms spiked, breaches in the outer hulls, and they ran, Vexa sinking into the bond seamlessly, her essence adding a layer of fierce redemption. The core elevator plummeted them toward the archives, the citadel quaking as Aurel's forces boarded in earnest. Max felt Elias stir stronger, visions guiding. The vault requires blood of the lines and sparks fire. Open it and choose. The doors parted to a subterranean chamber, the archives manifesting, not cold stone, but a throbbing heart of crystal, pulsing with expectant light. Aurel's voice boomed through comms, a dramatic intrusion. The catalyst awakens. Surrender him, daughters, or the void claims all. But Max stepped forward, Triad and Vexa at his flanks, the twist empowering them. No more games, sister. Come and merge or face the family you've forgotten. The chamber sealed, the archives doors creaking open under his touch, light flooding out like dawn after eternal night. The surprise of heritage, of engineered destinies, had flipped the script. Now, the HFY legend wasn't conquest, but reclamation, a human spark reuniting his cosmic children against the fractures of time. The crystal heart of the archives pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm, its vast chamber unfolding before them like the inside of a living star, walls of translucent facets refracting the light into rainbows that danced across their faces, holographic tendrils snaking through the air like curious serpents seeking warmth. Max stepped forward first, the spark within him, Elias's legacy, igniting the space with a resonant hum that vibrated through his bones, making the very air shimmer as if reality itself was recalibrating. Behind him, the Triad and Vexa fanned out, their white hair glowing ethereally in the prismatic glow, pointed ears attuned to the whispers of ancient data streams that now flooded their enhanced senses. The doors sealed with a final, echoing thud, cocooning them from the Citadel's shuddering alarms, but the drama of the moment pressed in like an invisible weight, Aurel's forces hammering at the outer shields, her comms crackling with furious demands for the stolen air. This wasn't just a vault, it was the cradle of their existence, and unlocking it meant rewriting the stars or shattering them entirely. Lyra's hand found Max's, her grip tight, almost desperate, as the central pedestal ignited, projecting a colossal hologram of Elias Thorne in full, not the ethereal figure from the dream, but a flesh-and-blood man in his prime, clad in archaic Terran garb, his eyes, Max's eyes, boring into them with paternal intensity. "Welcome, bearers," the hologram intoned, its voice a thunderous echo that seemed to emanate from the chamber's core, heightening the drama to operatic levels. The forge awakens, but blood must affirm the lines. Vex's face paled further, if that was possible for her alabaster skin, as she stepped up, slicing her palm with a conjured blade, letting luminescent droplets fall onto the pedestal. The Triad followed suit, Lyra's cut precise and regal, Zara's forceful and unyielding, Nara's with a wince that drew a sympathetic twinge from Max through the bond. The blood mingled, runes flaring to life, but when it came to Max, the pedestal demanded more. The Sparks vessel must yield essence, not of blade, but of will. Merge with me, air, or the truth remains veiled. Max hesitated, the awkwardness of the command hitting him like a splash of cold water in the midst of cosmic pomp. Merge, like, what? A software update? Do I need to sign a terms of service agreement for my own soul? His quip hung in the air, a human jab at the absurdity, earning a snort from Nara that bordered on a giggle, her hand flying to her mouth as if scandalized by her own levity. Zara rolled her eyes, but the corner of her lips twitched, the tension cracking just enough to let humor seep through. Embrace her, if only it were that simple. Elias's code, it'll sync with your neural pathways, might feel like indigestion from a supernova. Vexa, still shaky from her release, added dryly, or like waking up with your ancestors' memories in your head. Awkward family reunions are universal, it seems. The pedestal's glow intensified, urging him on, and Max placed his hand atop the mingled blood, the spark surging like a dam breaking. Visions assaulted him, not gentle glimpses, but a torrent, Elias's exile from a war-torn Terra Prime, his desperate flight into the void, the forbidden experiments that birthed Zarathia as a beacon for humanity's remnants. But woven through it were the line's divergences, Aurel's progenitors, warped by radiation storms into the Dravex's predatory hive mind. A failsafe meant to evolve aggressively if Zarathia's grace faltered. The merge deepened, Elias's consciousness brushing Max's like an old friend reclaiming a chair. Granting clarity, the archives weren't weapons, but a genetic symphony, capable of harmonizing all lines into a unified evolution, peaceful, powerful, beyond the fractures of pride and isolation. Yet the drama escalated as the chamber quaked, Aurel's voice booming through the sealed doors like a vengeful specter. I feel it, the catalyst stirs. Sisters, you hoard what is mine by blood right. Open this tomb, or I'll carve it from your hearts. Cracks spiderwebbed across the crystal walls, energy lances from her boarding parties probing the barriers, and suddenly, a section of the floor buckled, disgorging a squad of Dravex elites, hulking, chitin-armored brutes with mandibles dripping acidic saliva, their eyes glowing with the same violet hue as the triads, a twisted familial echo. The surprise intrusion heightened everything to fever pitch, the archive's light fracturing into warning strobes as the fight erupted in the sanctum's heart. Lyra's blade sang to life, clashing with the lead brute's energy whip in a shower of sparks that illuminated her fierce expression. But the awkwardness struck immediately. The pedestal's merge had left Max disoriented, his movements sluggish as Elias's memories overlaid his own, like trying to code while jet-lagged across millennia. He swung his lance wildly, clipping Vex's shoulder instead of the target, sending her stumbling into Zara with a yelp. Watch the family jewels, spark. Vexa grumbled, rubbing her arm as she righted herself, the bond carrying her mock annoyance to everyone, drawing a bark of laughter from Nara even as she disrupted a drone midair. Hey, at least he's got Elias's aim, legendary for missing the broad side of a nebula. The humor was a desperate spark in the chaos, lightening the dramatic press of claws and bolts, but Zara shoved Max upright with a grunt, her body slamming against his in the melee. Focus, air, or we'll all be awkward ancestors in the void. The battle intensified, the chamber's holograms glitching under the strain, Elias's form flickering like a bad holovid, narrating mid-fight. The lines converge, but choice defines the harmony. A brute lunged at Lyra, its claw grazing her thigh in a shallow cut that mirrored her earlier wound, drawing luminescent blood that sizzled on the crystal floor. She countered with a spin that would have been graceful, but the uneven footing from a buckling panel sent her skidding into Max's back, their bodies colliding in a heap that pinned him awkwardly against the pedestal. Her curves pressed against him in the tangle, her breath hot on his neck as she muttered, "Not the embrace I had in mind," her voice a mix of exertion and embarrassed humor. Max twisted free, firing point-blank into the brute's maw, vaporizing it in a gory spray that splattered them both. Story of my life, saving the day with a side of slapstick. He quipped, wiping ichor from his face, the bond flooding him with Lyra's reluctant chuckle amid her pain. Vexa proved her redemption in the fray, her stolen Dravex tech syncing with the archive's defenses to summon crystalline barriers that hemmed in the elites, but one slipped through, tackling Nara to the ground in a roll that tangled her wild hair around its limbs like festive ribbons. "Get off, I've got enough bad dates without the exoskeleton." Nara yelped, her disruptor fizzling against its armor as she kicked futilely, the awkward position leaving her legs akimbo in a way that would have been comical if not for the claws raking inches from her face. Zara charged in, her lance impaling the beast and hauling it off like a discarded coat, but the momentum carried her into Vexa, the two colliding in a heap of white hair and curses. New sister already stepping on toes? Literally. Vexa groaned, disentangling with a shove, her voluptuous form heaving as she rose, violet eyes flashing with dramatic indignation. The humor cut through the tension, a brief oasis as Max covered them. Elias's tactical whispers guiding his shots to weak points, joints where Chitin met stolen Zarathian grafts. But Aurel's presence loomed larger, the doors groaning under sustained fire. Her hologram reforming at the pedestal's edge, towering, seductive in her shadowed allure, her coiling hair writhing like living voids. Fools, the merge is incomplete without me, the dominant line. Elias's spark chose division, I will end it. Her psychic tendrils lashed out, probing the bond, yanking at Max's mind with visions of alternate histories, Zarathia as a hive under her rule, the Triad as her consorts, Vexa exalted as High Priestess. The drama peaked in psychic warfare, Max clutching his temples as Elias countered, the archives flooding the chamber with defensive harmonies, sound waves that disoriented the elites, making them stumble like drunkards at a cosmic bar. One brute tripped over its own whip, face-planting into a holographic tome that projected embarrassing simulations of Dravex mating dances, eliciting a horrified screech. Even the archives have a sense of humor, Zara panted, blasting it mid-flail, her laughter ragged but genuine. The awkward situations compounded as the floor tilted from structural stress, sending the group sliding toward a chasm that yawned open, a rift to the Citadel's undercore. Venting plasma, Nara grabbed Max's arm, but her foot caught on a loose crystal shard. Yanking them both toward the edge in a flailing chain, Lyra snagging Zara, who hooked Vexa, a human centipede of warriors teetering on oblivion. This is what happens when family reunions go 0G. Max yelled over the roar, his free hand slapping a control rune that Elias highlighted, stabilizing the floor with a groan of ancient mechanisms. They collapsed in a pile, limbs everywhere, breaths mingling in exhausted relief. Vexa's elbow dug into Zara's ribs, personal space, tank, while Nara's hair smothered Lyra's face, muffling her indignant "get this mane off me." The humor bubbled up absurdly, a defiant chuckle rippling through the bond as they untangled, the elites regrouping for a final push. Aurel's hologram snarled, her form glitching as the archives resisted her intrusion. You mock destiny? The spark is mine to claim. But Max, bolstered by the merge, rose with the women, the pedestal now fully active, projecting the symphony's blueprint, a genetic weave that could bridge lines, evolving them beyond war. No, Queen, it's ours, all of us. He channeled the spark, Elias's voice overlaying his, harmony, not hegemony. The chamber responded, crystalline spikes erupting to impale the remaining elites, their bodies dissolving into data streams that fed back into the holograms, lessons absorbed, not destroyed. The doors buckled then, Aurel's personal guard bursting through, her elite daughters, twisted Zarathian Draven hybrids with white hair veined in black, their forms voluptuous yet armored in chitin. The drama crested in a whirlwind of blades and bolts, the women fighting as one, Max's guidance turning the tide. An awkward dodge sent Vexa barreling into one hybrid, their similar builds leading to a comedic grapple where hair-pulling ensued, sister-slapping. Really, Nara jeered from afar, disrupting another. Zara took a glancing hit, her suit tearing awkwardly across her midriff, exposing skin that drew a distracted glance from Max, Elias's memories flashing unhelpfully with ancestral crushes. Eyes up, heir, family first? Zara barked, but her grin was fierce, the humor stealing them. As the last hybrid fell, Aurel's true form breached the threshold, towering, radiant in her shadowed glory, eyes locking on Max with a mix of hunger and recognition. The catalyst, brother to my line, yield and we rule as one. The chamber trembled, the symphony's activation imminent, but the rift widened, pulling at them all. Drama hung by a thread, merge or fall. Max extended a hand, the spark bridging the gap. Not rule, evolve. Join the family, Aurel, or watch it bloom without you. Her tendrils hesitated, the bond reaching out. Awkward in its vulnerability, centuries of isolation cracking under the weight of shared blood. The women flanked him, blades ready but open, humor fading into tense anticipation. Vexa whispered, she's scared, like us. Zara nodded. Awkward, but true. Aurel's form wavered, the psychic assault turning to a tentative probe, the archives humming approval. But the Citadel's core groaned, a final breach from outer forces, and the chamber tilted perilously, sending them all scrambling. Nara slipped, grabbing Aurel's tendril by mistake, whoops, tentacle tango, yanking the queen off balance into the fray. The humor shattered the standoff, Aurel's mandibles clicking in what might have been laughter or rage. But the contact sparked the symphony, bloodlines sinking in a blaze of light, evolutions rippling through them all. Pain and power intertwined, the drama resolving in a collective gasp as the lines merged, not in conquest, but clumsy, profound unity. The light faded, the chamber stabilizing, Aurel diminished but transformed, her chitin softening to crystalline armor, hair pure white once more, eyes softening to violet. The harmony, she breathed, collapsing to one knee, the awkwardness of her fall drawing reluctant smiles. Elias's folly, our salvation. The alarms silenced, the Citadel's threats repelled by the new power. Max helped her up, the Triad and Vexa circling in wary welcome. "Family's messy," he said, humor lightening the height, "but we make it work." Laughter echoed, drama yielding to dawn, the archive's light now a beacon for what came next. The symphony's light cascaded through the chamber like a final, forgiving dawn, washing over Aurel's transformed form in waves of prismatic warmth that knit the fractures in her crystalline armor and softened the jagged edges of her once predatory silhouette. She rose slowly, no longer towering in menace but standing as an equal among them, her white hair flowing freely now, untwisted from its thorny crown, her violet eyes reflecting the archive's glow with a clarity born of release. Max's hand, still extended from that awkward yank through Nara's mishap, steadied her elbow, the contact sending a final ripple through the bond that now encompassed all five, Triad, Vexa, and the reformed queen, their essences harmonizing in a gentle hum that echoed the chamber's core. The laughter that had bubbled up in the wake of the chaos lingered in the air, a soft undercurrent to the profound silence that followed, as if the stars themselves paused to witness this mending of ancient rifts. Aurel's mandibles, once clacking weapons of intimidation, parted in what could only be described as a tentative smile. Her voice emerging not as a boom but a resonant murmur, laced with the vulnerability of one long starved for kinship. The harmony, it remembers. Elias's folly was in division, but you, ere you wove the threads back. Her gaze swept over the group, lingering on each face, Lyra's stoic nod of acceptance, Zara's wary but approving grip on her lance, Nara's mischievous wink that masked deeper relief, Vexa's quiet exhale of vindication. The awkwardness of the moment, the queen's knee still dusty from her fall, the ichor stains on their suits like badges from a particularly messy family dinner, faded into something almost endearing, a humanizing touch in the grandeur of revelation. Max chuckled softly, the sound grounding them all. "Yeah, well, if this is what family looks like, spilled blood, bad hair days, and zero-G slip-ups, I'll take it over boardroom battles any day." The archives responded to the unity, its crystal walls shifting with a melodic chime, holographic tendrils retracting to reveal alcoves filled with glowing orbs, repositories of the symphony's full potential. No longer a weapon of doom, but a gift, evolutions that promised not dominance, but symbiosis, genetic weaves that could mend the scars of radiation on Aurel's Dravex kin, granting them the grace of Zerathia without erasing their resilient fire. Enhancements for the Triad and Vexa that amplified their bond with Max's spark, turning it from a catalyst of crisis into a beacon of enduring strength. Elias's hologram flickered one last time, his form fading with a paternal nod. The lines converge. Guard the harmony, children of the stars. Let it light the void. Then, silence, a peaceful hush that wrapped around them like the chamber's own embrace. Lyra stepped forward first, her hand releasing Max's only to clasp Aurel's forearm in the traditional Zerathian greeting, the gesture bridging eons of enmity. "Sister Queen," she said, her voice steady but warm, the drama of their shared history dissolving into mutual respect. "The archives are open to all lines now. No more shadows, no more fail-safes. We build from here together." Aurel returned the clasp, her crystalline armor chiming softly against Lyra's suit, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Zara followed, her powerful frame relaxing as she sheathed her lance, the humor in her eyes evident. "Just don't hog the pool during recharge rituals. We've got a new member, and space is at a premium." Nara burst into full laughter at that, pulling Vexa into a quick hug that caught the redeemed warrior off guard, her pointed ears flushing pink. "See, told you family reunions end with awkward squeezes. Welcome back, sis, no hard feelings about the whole traitor mix-up." Vexa smiled genuinely for the first time, her voluptuous form straightening with renewed purpose, the bond now flowing freely through her like a long-lost river returning to the sea. The lie was heavy, but truth is lighter. "And you, Max, Elias's heir, you didn't just save us. You reminded us what we were built for, not war, but wonder." Max felt a swell of emotion through the connection, a tapestry of gratitude and affection from each of them, warming him from within. It was HFY at its core, not the bombast of solo heroism, but the quiet triumph of human connection bridging the impossible, turning aliens into allies, enemies into kin, back on Earth. In the grind of 2025 startups and stars unreached dreams, he chased this feeling in code and capital. Here, in the heart of Zarathia, he'd found it in flesh and fire, in the messy, magnificent weave of lives intertwined. As the chamber's light stabilized, the Citadel's system synced with the Archive symphony, a subtle vibration rippling through Orali's prime like a sigh of relief. Alarms fell silent, shields reinforcing with the new evolutions, plasma weaves drawn from the genetic harmony, impenetrable yet flexible, a metaphor for their mended bonds. Aurel, still adjusting to her softened form, glanced at the viewport holograms now blooming around them, views of the gas giant storms calming. Dravex fleets halting their assault as her psychic command, once a whip, now a gentle call, recalled them. My swarm, they feel it too. The hunger twists no more. We return to the rims, but as allies, not adversaries. Zarathia and Dravex, united under the spark's light. The group emerged from the core as one, the elevator ascending smoothly to the upper decks where the Citadel's heart beat strongest. The corridors, once scarred by battle, began self-repairing under the symphony's influence, walls knitting like healed flesh, lights brightening to a welcoming glow. They paused in the grand atrium, the auroras outside painting their faces in emerald and indigo, a natural frame for this newfound family. Max stood at the center, the triad flanking him as always, Lyra's steady presence at his right, Zara's protective bulk at his left, Nara's playful energy behind. But now Vexa and Aurel joined the circle, their presences adding layers of depth, Vexa's quiet wisdom, Aurel's reformed intensity. It was awkward at first, the silence pregnant with unspoken histories, but Nara broke it with her trademark spark. So, who's up for that pool dip now? No tentacles this time. Aurel, promise? The queen's mandibles clicked in amusement, a sound that drew surprised laughs from the others. I make no such vow, little whirlwind, but perhaps a truce in the waters. They moved to the private sanctum as a group, the chamber welcoming them with its starry orbs and steaming pool. Now enhanced by the symphony, the waters shimmering with restorative essences that promised not just healing, but evolution. Suits shed once more, bodies slipping into the embrace of the liquid warmth. The scene was one of serene closure, no frantic passion this time, but a languid communion, hands linking underwater, the bond singing softly as subtle changes rippled through them. Max felt at first, a gentle surge in his veins, the spark integrating Elias's knowledge without overwhelming, granting him visions of Stellar Forge's revival, not as a solo venture, but a bridge between Earth and Zarathia. The triad's touches were tender, exploratory, Lyra's fingers tracing his arm with quiet affection, Zara's leg brushing his in companionable ease, Nara's head on his shoulder with a contented sigh. Vexa floated nearby, her form relaxed, while Aurel, still adapting, dipped a tendril experimentally, her violet eyes meeting Max's in silent thanks. Hours blurred into a timeless haze, the pool's magic weaving their futures, alliances forged across the rims, Dravex and Zarathians evolving side by side, humanity's spark the eternal catalyst. Max shared stories of Earth, Silicon Valley's hustle, the dreams of Mars that paled against this reality, drawing wonder from Aurel and Vexa, knowing nods from the triad. You'll return, Lyra murmured as they finally emerged, bodies glowing faintly with the symphony's gift. To your world with us, the stars aren't for hoarding, they're for sharing. Zara clapped his back, a bit too hard, eliciting a grin, and bring better boots next time, no more sliding into chasms like a novice asteroid miner. Nara hugged him fiercely, whispering, don't be a stranger, embrace her. The bond doesn't let go easy. Aurel, last to speak, placed a crystalline hand on his chest, the touch cool yet invigorating. You mended what I broke, air. The void is vast, but family fills it. Vexa nodded, her smile warm. Go light the way for your kin. We'll guard the harmony here until the next reunion. Max's repaired ship awaited in the docking bay, Stellar Forge's prototype gleaming anew under the Citadel's care, engines humming with hybrid tech from the archives. As he boarded, the women gathered at the airlock, their white hair catching the aurora light like halos. Humans fuck yeah, Nara called with a wink, the HFY mantra now a shared jest, a nod to the underdog spark that had changed everything. Laughter followed him into the cockpit, the bond a distant but eternal warmth as the ship detached, Zarathia shrinking to a jewel against the gas giant's storms. The jump to hyperspace was smooth, stars streaking into lines of fire, and Max leaned back, Elias's echoes settling into quiet wisdom. Earth awaited, September 8, 2025, frozen in his chronometer, but he returned transformed, not burned out, but ignited. Stellar Forge would launch not as a dreamer's folly, but a gateway, humanity to the stars, stars to humanity, with a family of warriors waiting in the void. The console pinged a message from Lyra, simple and profound, "Come back soon, the embrace awaits." Max smiled, plotting the course. The galaxy was vast, but connection made it home. And in that, the story of the warrior sisters and their human spark found its perfect, enduring end, one of harmony, humor, and horizons forever expanded. In the weeks that followed, as Max's ship pierced the solar system's veil, the bond whispered updates, Zarathia's fleets allying with reformed Dravex swarms, exploring fringe worlds with the Symphony's evolutions, worlds where life bloomed anew under unified care. Aurel, embracing her role as matriarch of balance, diplomatic forays, her once shadowed realm now a bastion of shared power. Vexa, exonerated and elevated, became the archive's guardian, her wisdom ensuring the knowledge served creation, not conquest. The triad Lyra's leadership steadied by Zara's might and Nara's spirit, coordinated from Aurali's prime, their private rituals now inclusive, the pool a symbol of mended waters. Max touched down in the Nevada desert, the crash site's ironic mirror, where recovery teams awaited his miraculous return. The world hadn't changed, traffic jams, stock tickers, endless pings, but he had. Stellar Forge's board meeting was a triumph, prototypes infused with Zarathian tech, pitches laced with truths veiled as innovation. Investors marveled at the human ingenuity, unaware of the cosmic debt. Nights, he felt the bond's pull, dreams of white hair and violet eyes, the embrace a promise across light years. Years later, as the first joint mission launched, Earth shuttles docking with Zarathian vessels, Max stood on the bridge, the triad materializing via hologram, their smiles bridging the gap. "See, family delivers," Zara teased. Aurel's voice joined, steady and warm. The spark endures. And in that moment, with stars unfolding before them, Max knew the warrior sisters hadn't just saved him, they'd shown him the universe's true fuck yeah, not in isolation, but in the beautiful, unbreakable weave of us all. As the stars aligned in harmony, Max Harlan's legacy echoed across the cosmos, a testament to humanity's unyielding spirit. From a burned-out founder to the bridge between worlds, he proved that true power lies not in conquest, but in connection, HFY at its finest, where one human spark ignited an interstellar family. The warrior sisters, once divided, now thrived as guardians of the symphony, their embrace eternal across the void. And so, the galaxy turned, brighter for the bonds forged in fire and fate. In my view as the storyteller, this tale captures the heart of HFY, humans as unlikely heroes, weaving romance and resilience into the stars. What if you were Max? Would you embrace the cosmic family, or chase solo glory? Share your thoughts below. Thank you for joining this epic journey on X-Aurel. Your likes, subs, comments, and shares fuel our passion. Your support is the spark that lets us craft even better stories next time.